Hi there, it's Deidre from Our Upcycled Life and welcome to my channel. If you like thrifting, DIY, repurposing, you've come to the right place and we'd love to have you follow along. So make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss any great content. Today I have a little bit of a technical video. I love using Mod Podge for photo transfer and graphic transfer, but there's quite a few methods that you can use to achieve this. So today I'm going to show you 4 different methods that you can use Mod Podge for to transfer your graphics or your photos. I'm going to go through step by step with each process, so make sure you hang out to the end to see which one you like the best, and then leave me a comment down below and let me know if you've tried any of these techniques and which one's your favorite. And also with all of my videos, after this is aired for a week, I'm going to go through my comments and I'm going to pick a winner for one person to win any graphics that they'd like out of my Etsy store. You can head over to my Etsy store. I have all my graphics there from all my previous projects, and you can pick out anything you like, download it right away, and use it for your DIY projects. Okay, let's get started. Okay, to do these projects, I've picked out some scrap 2x4s and I'm going to paint them with some chalk paint. To do this technique, I find that chalk paint works the best. I've tried it with acrylic paint and I've tried it with latex, and the chalk paint always works better. I make my own chalk paint, so I'll put a link below in the description so you can see my recipe, and it works fabulous. And I'm just going to put a base coat of black all over all 4 blocks. Okay, the base coat of the black has dried, and now I'm going to put a coat of my white chalk paint on one side that I'm going to do the transfer on. I'm going to sand up the edges because I like that rustic chippy look, and then they're ready for transfers. And these are the 4 methods that I'm going to show you today. Just a regular transfer, a napkin transfer, an iron-on transfer, and a reverse transfer. And I'm going to be using my matte Mod Podge. You can use a gloss, I just like the look of the matte myself better. I'm going to use all of the same graphics on each technique, so when it's all finished you can see the difference of each one. All of these, with the exception of the napkin, have been printed on regular computer paper with my laser jet. You can use your inkjet, but you'll have to do a special step before you do it. The first technique that we're going to do is the reverse transfer. I've printed this off on my laser jet and I've reversed the text. This is very important with this technique, is to reverse the text, because you're going to flip it over when you put it on your piece of wood. If you're going to use your inkjet printer, I'll put a link below for a video that I made of the process that you have to do to your graphics or your photos before you do this technique. Now you're just going to put a light coat of Mod Podge all over the whole graphic until it's completely covered, and then you're going to flip it over and press it onto the wood. Make sure it's centered exactly where you want it. And then press out all the little bubbles and all the little wrinkles and make sure it's adhered really well to the wood. You can also do all of these techniques with pictures that you've printed off on your computer. Just remember, if you're using a picture, that you have to reverse the image of it too before you do this technique. Now this needs to dry, and I usually let it sit overnight. And now we're just going to do a regular transfer. You want to make sure that your piece of paper is cut the same size as your block of wood. You don't want it any smaller, because then your paper will show along the edges. So you're just going to put a coat of Mod Podge all over the back of the graphic. Just put a nice light even coat all over, and then you're going to flip it over and press it onto the piece of wood and make sure you get out all the wrinkles and all the bubbles. With this technique, you don't have to reverse your text, you just leave it as is. This is the most common way to use a Mod Podge transfer, and it's the easiest one to do. Make sure you press all those bubbles and all those little wrinkles out if you have any, and make sure it's pressed down nice and firm. And the next technique is a napkin transfer. So what you want to do is you're going to take your Mod Podge and put it on the block of wood and put a light coat. You don't want it too thick with this transfer. You just want a nice light coat over the entire surface, and then you're going to pick up your napkin and just very gently lie it down and make sure it's centered, and then just gently press it down with your finger. I like to take my paintbrush and just kind of gently just tap it in and get any wrinkles or bubbles out that you might have. I just did a tutorial on how to make your own napkins, and I'll put that link below in the description because it's a really cool technique. So you can make whatever kind of napkin you want with any graphic or any photo. I find it really hard sometimes to find the nice napkins that I like to use, so that's why I make my own. And here's a little trick. If you have little bubbles or little wrinkles that show up when you're doing this, get a little piece of cling wrap and just dab it where it is, and it'll push that right out. Now the next technique is an iron-on transfer. You want to make sure your paper is cut the exact same size as the block of wood. You're going to put your Mod Podge onto the wood, and you want to put a liberal amount on. You want quite a bit. This technique takes a little bit of practice. It can sometimes be a little bit fussy and a little bit tricky, so just be patient and give it a try. Now you're going to take that iron-on piece of wood and set it to the side and let it dry thoroughly. Okay, now my napkin transfer has completely dried and I'm ready to put the top coat on. You're just going to take your Mod Podge and just put a light coat over the whole napkin and seal it right up. And now the regular transfer has completely dried, and now I'm going to put a top coat of the Mod Podge all over that entire surface. Just a light coat, and make sure you cover everything completely. And we're going to let it dry. Okay, now that Mod Podge that we put on that piece of wood for the iron-on transfer is completely dry. We're going to take our image, put it on the block of wood, make sure it's centered exactly where you want it. Get some parchment paper. Has to be parchment paper, not wax paper, because it'll stick. You're going to take your iron, have it on the highest setting, 6, with no steam, and you're just going to iron it on top of that and let all the Mod Podge melt and adhere right to the wood. Just keep an eye on it. You can lift up the parchment paper and just check the edges. Be careful it's hot, and make sure that it is adhered well. And it looks pretty good. I'm just going to give it one last little iron. It looks like it's adhered really well to the wood, so I'm going to let it cool down and it'll be ready for a top coat. And now I'm going to take the Mod Podge, make sure it's nice and dry and it's not hot anymore, and I'm going to put a nice light coat over the whole top. And now we're just going to let it dry. Now the reverse transfer method has sat overnight. It's completely dry. You're going to take a damp rag and you're going to rub the water all over the graphic until you start to see the words show through, and then you're just going to take your fingers and rub all of the paper off. Takes a little bit of patience and a little bit of a knack, but it looks fabulous. The trick to this technique is not to have the paper too wet. You just want it damp so you can just see the lettering through. Now it's all completely rubbed off and it's ready for a top coat. I'm just going to put a light coat of the Mod Podge all over the top, and you don't need to sand this because it's already all sanded around the edges and there's no paper to blend in. Okay, now the regular transfer is completely dry. The top coat of Mod Podge is dry, and then I like to take the sander and sand all around the edges so it looks like it blends right into the wood. I'm using an 80 grit sanding block and it works really good. You can also use an electric sander, but it's out in my shed and it's really cold right now, so I'm not going to go out there and use it. Now the napkin transfer is completely dry. And again, I'm just going to take my sander and just blend it in all along the edges and just give it a nice sand. And now the iron-on transfer top coat is completely dry. I'm going to take my sander and blend it in all around the block. And there you have the 4 different techniques to use Mod Podge for image or graphic transfer. Let me know which one you like the best. My favorite is the reverse transfer. It blends in really well and I just find it's nice and crisp and looks like it was made for the wood. I hope you have enjoyed today's tutorial and it's helped you out to learn more about how you can use Mod Podge for photo and graphic transfer. Thanks for watching and have a great day.